or repairized. The bosses have no idea who she is, and she's trying to persuade them that Maude Flanders is worth the money, explicitly by citing the existence of the Maude Flanders Internet Movie Database, etc., among other things. Would you like to be Maggie Roswell or the Fox executives?
I'll go for Roswell.
I thought you would. All right, and action.
Hello.
Who are you? Sorry.
I'm Maggie Roswell from The Simpsons, amongst other things.
Maggie Roswell, no, I'm sorry, we don't have an appointment for you today, Maggie Roswell, and I don't think you do come from The Simpsons.
Yes, I'm all the women. Maude, Luann, Helen.
I'm sorry, I don't know any of those characters. Are you Marge?
No.
Lisa?
No, I'm not.
Are you Lunch Lady Doris?
No.
And what can I do for you today? What did you say your name was? Molly?
Maggie Roswell.
What can I do for you today? Do I need to call security, or are you going to leave by yourself?
I'll leave by myself, but I have some questions to ask beforehand.
I'm very busy organising our new Fox Thursday evening lineup of Dillies, Pickles, and Johnny Jim Jam and the Jabberwocky. So please, give me your questions.
I would like more money for the job I am doing. I want to pay a rise.
I'm afraid I don't know who you are or why you want more money. What possible reason would there be? How much do you want?
$4,000.
$4,000 a week. You would like me to increase your pay by $4,000 a week because you do Molly Flanders.
Maude.
I don't think it's worth any more money. Is she a big deal? I don't think so. I don't think anyone knows who she is.
Well, until recently I thought so, but there's a podcast out now all about her.
A pod what?
Podcast.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with the newfangled terminology.
I listened to it on my Walkman.
Security is on their way and they shall escort you from the building.
Give me my money.
I'm afraid not. There's no money for you. Here's a bus ticket. Here's a half-used bus ticket and some hot dogs you can warm up in the sink. And here's security. Off you go.
I need to get back to Denver, Colorado. Help.
Maude! It's a Maude Goodcast podcast, season 3. Probably not a pharmacist. She's a knocker down of them Skittles. And she's a Midwest girl next door voice of increasing intensity. She's a purveyor of the barbecue victuals. She's a cousin to the Tinker Turnbulls who are stuck in wells. Supportive wife and mother get baptized. Just learning us all to be more judgeful. It's a Maudecast season 3 with the opposite of a finale.
Good. Season 3.
It's season 3.
Who would have believed it?
Don't consume any ham or bacon products, friend.
Yes.
Who would have believed it?
It's a long journey.
In the last days of the 20th century.
We aren't even close to the end.
Oh no, this is not the end. We got plenty more legs in her yet. Hello, good morning, and Ned's wife clum. Don't even consider eating any meat product, chum. Brought to you by the Maudecasting Corporation, a division of Ross Dibney, Multiple Conger Eels Incorporated. Sponsors, Log Lady from Lost. Sponsors, the CIA Cops in Action. Sponsors, Susan Magdalena Boyle, Facebook RIP. Sponsor, Bradley Walsh and his chasers. Sponsor, Death in the form of Big Tobacco. Sponsor, Rolling Eyes Woman off that show about cleaning your house and Lost. Anti-sponsor, Son of Sonny Bono, copyright sniffer.
A lot of sponsors, but
I can only say that our attempt to slim down our sponsor list has failed.
People just want to invest.
People just want to invest. They're giving us money left, right, and centre. And who am I to argue if Death comes around with a wad of cash?
Exactly.
Not me. Would you like a quote from Jack Derrida?
Yes, it's been a while, I think.
Contrary to what phenomenology, which is always phenomenology of perception, has tried to make us believe, contrary to what our desire cannot fail to be tempted into believing, the thing itself always escapes.
Could you read the first half again?
No, I'm afraid not. Jack explicitly told me that there were no repeats. It's a one-time extravaganza.
Then in that case, Maude is the thing that this podcast desires to learn about, and she did slip away in the end.
The essence of Maude, as we talked about last week in that picture in the Treehouse of Horror last season, the essence is there, but so hard to grasp, what with her being both fictional and a cartoon and dead. She's especially slippery.
Yeah, she escaped not once, not twice, but twice.
Exactly. And we believe in this show that we can get to grips with Maude, but we ourselves know that's a fool's errand, a mug's game.
She's not like the other characters. Well, Disco, Stu and Poochie, I've noticed, were very easy to pinpoint, like characteristics, and they basically walk in and announce who they are and what they want and what they believe in. I don't think we ever get that from Maude.
Oh no, she's an enigma wrapped in a sausage roll.
Wrapped in a vest.
Give me a number between 1 and 280 something.
138.
138. Send me to Maude.
That's Mo.
Tell me more. Tell me, Mo.
This is, well, it's relatively fresh in my mind because of the Halloween stuff we looked at for our Halloween special. And yeah, Mo, I've been looking, I don't know, I think it only crops up around season 11, this sort of, I'm going to keep my eye out, just one of them, for Mo references to Maude, because it seems like he doesn't know who she is until season 11, and then he gets super interested super quickly. And yeah, it's a pretty, Mo's a bit of a rum character anyway. We've seen him do some stuff that's slightly below board, like kidnapping pandas and stuff like that, and whales. But he's really like, I can't think of the correct word. Insensitive doesn't seem to cover it. Like he's
oblivious.
He's talking to Ned. I don't think he's oblivious. I think he knows what he's doing. Talking to Ned at Maude's wake about how he wished Ned had died, and then Ned's response is to just start like softly like hitting his chest, and then it eventually just turns into full beating. I believe there was a screenshot of it in the last podcast, actually.
I believe so. It's
two episodes ago.
It's a fundamental image to understanding Ned's feeling about Maude. But what's this all about? Send me to Maude. Why does he say this? And why the hell is Ned not saying it?
Well, he's just, I think Mo has a bit of a death wish anyway. Mo would be a good character to look at, but it would be quite a traumatic episode, I think, because the thing I'm thinking of now is the Christmas episode. That do you remember it?
I know that Mo's tried to off himself several times. He's a grim character.
There's been a couple, like, but not even sort of, the Christmas one was sort of jokey, but still, like, he's just in the oven with a sign on his back saying no funeral, and then he just takes his head out. Takes his head out and carries on with his day. But there's been, like, especially in the later ones, there's one where he tries to hang himself. There's one where he tries to jump off a bridge and he catches Maggie. Jesus. And yeah, so Mo might be a tricky one to look at.
This is like cast. I mean, Mo's. This isn't the Mo cast, so I don't want to go too far into it. But he's had a tough time of things generally down the line. He doesn't make it easy for himself, though. In
comparison to Ned, has he really had that tough of a time?
Probably not. Most of the ills he's brought on himself.
So imagine this was just another attempt to die. He wanted Ned to just, like, when he says "send me to Maude," there's sort of excitement in his voice.
Well, when does he say it though? Is it when Ned's hitting him at the funeral, at the wake?
Yeah, it's at the wake. Like, he says all the stuff about if she was dead, and then Ned calls him a monster and starts like hitting him like that, like on the chest really soft, and then just starts pummeling him. And he just says, "Oh yeah, send me to Maude. That's it. Come on, here I come, baby."
He's mocking Ned at his own wife's funeral.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else in Springfield you think that may use this line, "Send me to Maude"?
Other than Ned, no. Possibly at Praiseland when maybe somebody wanted to see the statue.
Recontextualization. That's unacceptable.
But they wouldn't say send.
No, so they'd say, show me to Maude. I mean the statue.
Yes, but no, that's what that is.
Alrighty, so here's the thing, though, Nathan. Thankfully, here at the MFIMDB, if you're new to us, we are the owners, the Courtney Watchdogs. We're the owners of the Maude Flanders Internet Museum, Database, and Hot Cake Family Restaurant. We just returned from Kits and St. Nevis, where we put out a hobgoblin invasion. Brought 2 little hobgoblins back with us that you can that cheerfully tried to murder us in the Halloween episode. But it's all good fun and games until someone loses a lung. Right now, send us all to Maude, and they're up there in the penthouse. We built a penthouse for them on top of the museum, and we got a nice letter from Joseph and Patricia Lilburn at MF2, the Kits and St. Nevis MFIMDB, the second oldest MF on the planet. But and thankfully, Stamp and the Statman and their next door neighbor Envelope, Statman's Stamp's cousin, they've all got well into playing Magic the Gathering on Twitch, and they've launched a channel, and they're making a lot of cash. So thankfully, we've not heard a lot from them recently. The Curry Annex It is. It's a good scam, isn't it? However, I'm afraid, Nathan, I hope you've got nothing planned for the next 2 weeks, because I've got a message from the from MF5, the Maude Flanders Internet Museum Database Space Station, and it reads as the following. The shuttle has not landed when we expected it because the payload door will not close. When I was performing a manual winch op, I was disconnecting the motor from the door when the two orbital maneuvering systems and reaction control engines jammed. Now, they've tried an ROC, but nothing's working, Nathan. I'm afraid we're going to have to put our spacesuits on and go up to MF5.
Yes, and go and give Frank Sidebottom a hand.
Exactly. Rest in peace. But if you get I'll get the spirit level, and if you get the pliers, I'm pretty sure we can have those doors fixed in no time. So if you don't hear from us for a few weeks, people, we might just be in space. But Space Dog, shall we, in no further ado's, shall we get into content?
Yes.
Anything you want to tell these good people before we start up on the content?
We're on to season 7. 7, 8, and 9 are our most prominent mods, I think. But having said that, there's 8, 9, and 10 I'm still yet to look through to see if there's many background mods. So she could, for all we know, she could be in every episode of season 9.
Be going through it with a Maude tooth comb.
Yeah, and I'd almost missed one.
Oh.
Luckily, I saw a meme the other day of the yard sale that we've already looked at for Disco Stew.
Oh, yeah.
And Maude was in the crowd. I thought, why have they edited Maude into this crowd? Because I've already been through this clip this episode about 4 times now. Did it for the Stewcast, and then I did it in gathering the recordings, and I also watched it recently. And she is I just missed her. She's just in a crowd at one point. So, but we haven't looked at it yet. So
lucky for us,
we got lucky.
Clip 1. Now, we've had this hanging over for weeks and weeks. It's been more than a month since people saw part 1 of Who Shot Mr. Burns. Clip 1, Who Shot Mr. Burns? We open to Kent Brockman. He's saying at 3 p.m. on Friday, local autocrat C. Montgomery Burns was shot. We see the police around the body. We see them put an oxygen mask onto him and put him in the ambulance. Right there next to the ambulance, next to Jimbo and Ned, we see Maude. Her hand goes to her mouth. She has a blank, shocked, maybe look on her face. And Kent Brockman continues, following a tense confrontation at the hall. And there she is. As he says those words, it cuts straight back to Maude. Are they giving us a clue? Who knows?
I think we should just run with the thing that she shot him for the rest of our continuity, because her reaction here is very much, what have I done? She wouldn't care this much about, maybe season 2 Maude would care this much about Mr. Burns, because she thinks of him as a happy car buying, or season 3, but shopping trip sort of Maude, Mr. Burns kind of guy.
The good old days.
Yeah, but now she's just watched him laugh at a dog and point a gun at a kid and turn out the sun. So I don't think she would be this shocked. I don't know. She is pretty easily shocked.
No, but it seems suspicious that the camera goes onto her. And if I was, a conspiracy theorist on the YouTube, I'd be using this as a prime piece of evidence.
And she wasn't there. She wasn't there with the crowd at the end of the last episode, but she's there with the crowd now.
Exactly.
So she didn't go home and leave like she usually does. She was still around somewhere. So yes, I think we can conclude that Maude Flanders did in fact shoot Mr. Burns.
And got away with it for all these years. And now, of course, she's dead. And so that case justice will never be served.
Unless a rich man himself employed T-shirt cannon workers on a specific day. But it would be easier just to have a shot.
It's a highly elaborate revenge should that have taken place.
Yeah.
And it does seem like that would let Homer off the hook for Maude's death. And we certainly don't want to do that. Spoilers. Clip 2. This is huge. So much of what we know about modelling Flanders Goodman comes from this particular artifact.
Also, I would like to throw in now that I think this is probably our biggest episode to date in terms of content that gives us something. That is all.
But in the true, in harking back to Jack's quote earlier, in all of her appearances in these clips, she's fleeting. She's hard to pin down. She doesn't give us much more, but at the same time, she gives us so much more.
She gives us a lot. Most of the things we already knew about her come from this episode, I think. Several things.
Yes. So Bart and Lisa, we see them with their face pressed against the inside of a child's welfare van from the county. And Marge and Homer, Marge is sobbing and Homer's got his arm around Marge. The van drives away and immediately turns into the Flanders house, which for some reason is now on the left of them. I always thought it was on the right. Didn't the pants go out of the tree and the Flanders house is to the right of the Simpsons, not to the left? Anyway, in this clip, they're on the left-hand side. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but turns into the Flanders drive with the whole family waiting there. Rod and Todd are jumping for joy, especially Todd, very excited. And Ned's extending his arms. Hello, welcome to your new home, Neglectorinos. Maude, as usual, silent, just staring forward, mildly smiling. She has her hand on Ned's shoulders. And then she goes for the two hands. She puts two hands on Ned's shoulders. Very affectionate, probably more affectionate than we've seen before, and has a doting look at Ned. There's much more in this clip, but maybe do you want to jump in there?
I'll go for that. I wonder if Maude sees this as a silent victory because of her dislike of Marge. Like, I imagine that, I don't know how they got in touch with the Flanders to organise this so quickly, because they only really took the kid. This all happened in the space of like a morning. Like, Homer and Marge went to a sauna, left the house sort of a mess, and just a series of coincidences left it looking like it was an abusive, neglectful household, including Maggie drinking from the dog bowl. And but yeah, I'd like to think that it was Maude's idea to take in the Simpsons kids rather than Ned. And she doesn't look at Homer and Marge at all in this. They don't acknowledge that they're even there, which again, kind of rude. They could at least give them like, oh, you know, we'll look after them till you sort it out sort of thing. But they don't. They're just like, these are our children now.
One wonders whether Maude has some strings that she can pull inside the local county council office, and
maybe,
you know, won't somebody think of the children? As she never
this
said.
Woman, for all we know, this woman could be Ginger.
It's unlikely, seeing as Ginger is several generations back, but it could be a descendant of Ginger. Or Ginger could be immortal.
Yeah, that is also the immortal social services lady. Just stamp the ticket, man. But yeah, I think the affection is from the fact that this is a new chapter for the Flanders. I think, like Maude and Ned, you know, like this is, Rod and Todd are like however old they are now. Rod is coming up to 10, as we'll discover. Todd's age is, sometimes he's 2 space years younger than Rod, sometimes he's older than him, but Todd's a lot more excited. But yeah, this is a new chance for Ned and Maude to do some parenting, and I think Maude enjoys parenting.
I think so. She gets to order little people around and at the same time feels smug about it. And she's just increased her child load by 150% without having to give any more births.
That's the way to do it.
Cut to the Simpsons getting out of the back of the welfare van. The official says, kids, meet your new foster family. Rod and Todd run off with those flower chains that you get in Hawaii, or sometimes maybe those cult leaders give them out. I've seen that. And they're shouting, we love you. And it is weirdly cultish, you know. Bart is dressed in a potato sack. Lisa has all this disheveled hair. Todd goes in for the hug and gives Bart a big old hug. Bart responds with, please don't hug me. It sickens me.
I will say that's one of my favourite lines. And the way he delivers it is also good, because he doesn't say it with a lot of disgust. He says it very matter-of-factly. So that was... I also never really paid much attention to the flowers, but it is very weird, isn't it? Like, it's not a Flanders. Like, it would make sense if he handed them like what are those things, rosary beads or something.
Whatever, it's got a bit of a creepy vibe.
I have seen it on one TV show recently where they welcome a group of people into the Dharma Initiative on Lost.
On the Lost TV show.
One of our sponsors.
Sometimes. Occasionally. So we then cut back to Maude, who's standing still with Ned. Maude's now got a big grin and in a totally unconvincing voice says, I don't judge Homer and Marge. That's for a vengeful God to do. And Ned chips in. All we want to do is give you kids a good home until they get their act together. And I said this was kind of like the charity as a kind of judgment. We'll give you the charity, but at the same time that gives us the right to like put down some heavy judgment on you. And they know the Simpsons. They see them all the time. They know that this is not the regular state of affair for these kids, but they don't say anything worse than that. They just take the kids, come down with a heavy hammer of judgment on top of them.
It's sort of a like a punishment or like a hostage situation. Like they're playing it as a, oh, you know, we're going to take care of the kids, but Homer and Marge have to change the way they are in order to get the kids back. With, you know, they haven't really done anything wrong in this situation. It looks bad for them, but they haven't actually. Marge in particular is a very good parent, and Ned and Maude at no point are like, you know, no, actually this looks like a misunderstanding.
So we've lived next door to these people for a decade, and we've seen them consistently, raise their children well. However, we don't really know if that's how the Flanders perceive the Simpsons, because we see it from the outside as like they're doing a decent job, but who knows the Flanders? We know from the sugar incident that Maud can be very, very judgmental on the turn of a sixpence. So it would not be too far out of the realms of possibility for us to think that Maude and Ned genuinely think they're terrible parents, and this is and I don't remember if I see Bart in a potato sack every single day.
Yes. I'm going to do a small tally for this episode as well with the iconic Maude things. So this is the first one, in that this is the quote that sort of is attached to her wherever she goes, that I don't judge Homer and Marge. That's for a vengeful God to do. See that sort of knocking about Maude content quite a lot. I don't believe her either, because just in the use of the word vengeful implies that she thinks that they need vengeance seeking on them, because again, I think we're going for mild comedy here with Maude, because they're not what you would just say that's for God to do, but she's saying no, that's for a vengeful God. She doesn't specify either, does she? She just says a vengeful God.
Yes, but she I think in that case it's obvious that there's only one God to Maude. So it's like saying it's not for me to judge. That's for a king to judge. But I think there's only one God in Maude's eyes. I don't think this is giving us a hint that maybe she thinks there's a pantheon up there.
An idea that we'll come back to in the Cthulhu cast.
Interesting. Yes, please.
As he has made several Simpsons appearances, it is doable.
I would love to do a Cthulhu cast. One of the elder gods. Let's crack open the Necronomicon and see what is inside. I like what happens next. Elisa had plastic bags for shoes. She comes over and tries to defend her parents and says, "You don't understand. Mom and Dad take good care of us. At that second, a tooth falls out." She says, "That was a baby tooth." Ned is angry and Maude visibly gasps and is shocked. Lisa protests. "It was loose." The city welfare officer, who looks like a Victorian matron from a hospital, says, "Don't you worry, little girl. We'll get you some nice county dentures." Ned remains angry. Maude remains concerned.
I'm just checking who wrote this episode, because the look that Ned and Maude give to each other is very officey, and Greg Daniels was involved for a while. No, Jon Vitti.
Did they gym each other?
Basically, yeah, they give instead of looking to the camera, they give when Lisa's tooth falls out and she says, "Oh, this tooth was gonna fall out," they share a very officey kind of look, like an oh boy. But
oh boy, a Michael Scott raised eyebrow look.
Jim and Pam.
Don't jim the camera. Once again, I'm going to make our weekly community reference. Arbor tells, do you tell Britta to stop jimming the camera?
Much like Flanderization.
Exactly.
Oh, the other point, actually, the lady that you mentioned, the matronly Victorian lady, whatever. She's when I said in the Poochie cast that the business executive sort of shows up in a variety of, it's the same voice, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, but she's not quite doing the same role, but yeah, it's got that same kind of authority. Misplaced authority.
It's a good voice. She's called Tress McNeil, and she is she plays most of the business women, or the women of power in The Simpsons.
Yeah, I saw that name a lot in the credits and never had any idea who she was or what she did.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll have a day in the sun, but
the
please
test
continue.
Cast.
Yeah.
So we see Eddie and Lou putting tape between the houses. The Flanders take all the kids into the house, and Homer and Marge look on. And I find what was interesting, other than going back, I would have liked to have seen Lisa be presented with some county dentures and have these big ridiculous teeth in, but I think they just dropped that. It was just a line. It was just a gag. But this is quite a serious issue. Is that to be dealing with the idea of children being taken away from their parents and to make funny on it? It's quite a serious issue.
Yeah, it is a strange one. It's also one of the more emotionally charged, which is why it's one of the better ones, because, the Simpsons are sort of real people in this one. And again, the Flanders are the villains this time round, but they're villains by sort of doing right in their mind.
Yeah, I made a point about this later, I'll bring up, but they're not the villains until they cross a certain point in the episode. And today we're not going to get to that point. So if you just watch the episode without too much context, yes, it's pretty unfair and heinous that the kids have been taken away from them for essentially nothing at all. But the Flanders take good care of the kids and welcome them into their home.
They do a good job, but it's just a different. Bart and Lisa, it's nice that Bart and Lisa don't, like, they prefer the parenting of Homer and Marge, even if it is a little bit more lapsed. They miss certain things. They talk, I can't remember what it is, but they talk about, like, things that they miss, that, like, Homer and Marge doing, like, calling into the radio station and giving, like, fake traffic tips. Like, they sort of miss being Simpsons.
Yeah, the culture of the two families is very different, and I guess the joke or the crux of the episode is that Maggie hasn't become Simpsonized enough, and she literally gets Flanderized as the episode goes on, but we're not there yet. So we go to the next clip 3. We're in the Flanders kitchen. Now, before, when we've seen the Flanders eating, we've always seen them in the dining room, but seems like similar to the Simpsons house. They have a table in the kitchen, they have a table in the dining room. So they're sitting there, and I guess they're having breakfast in the kitchen. They put honey on the pancakes instead of maple syrup. That's what Bart says, and that is bad. I agree. I've been forced at times with my privileged lifestyle to suffer such pain as having to put honey or even sugar on pancakes when there's no maple syrup.
Tough.
It's a tough life. It's a tough world out there. But here's the next thing that's said, and I don't agree with this at all. Lisa says they read Newsweek instead of nothing. I'm not accepting that. There's no way that that would be her criticism of this family.
I think it's more that she's looking for reasons to dislike them. Like, I think Lisa liked being the black sheep of the family. So Lisa likes the fact that she's the only one that reads. So I sort of see it being like she's just sort of pointing out that, like, Homer and Marge are sort of her normality. So she's used to her parents reading nothing. So it's kind of freaking her out that these parents are reading. Like, sometimes, again, like, you get those episodes where she sort of gets what she wants, then realizes she doesn't want it. Like, she'll meet an intelligent person, or she'll meet, and then she doesn't like the fact that she's not the special one. So I imagine it's something to do with that.
I'll give you that. Accepted.
Thank you. Maude, iconic Maude too, is that they always mention Newsweek as her favourite thing, or like one of her favourite things to read. And it's obviously from this throwaway line.
Is it only from this reference? Because there's no suggestion that it's her favourite, just that they read it in the house.
I can't remember another one. Maybe there is, but this seems to be. Because again, you go on any sort of biography of Maude, and it's like it always sort of mentions Newsweek.
Yes, and not only does it mention this, it mentions the next thing that comes up. So Ned says, here's what's interesting, that already at the table, Bart and Lisa are sitting opposite Ned and Maude, but Maggie is already between Ned and Maude. Very quickly, she's become comfortable in the bosom of the Flanders family. So Ned says, come on, you gloomy gusses. And he stands up all enthusiastic and says, who's up for a big bowl of non-fat ice milk? Todd shouts, I want wintergreen. And I noticed that he raised his hand, but then he still shouted out, and I, as a teacher, found that somewhat unacceptable. If you're going to raise your hand, you need to wait to be called upon. You can't raise your hand and then shout out. It defeats the object of raising your hand in the first place. Come on, Todd. Anyway, Ned I think he would, but he's just so excited. Ned lets it slide. So I'm okay with that. Maude is smiling contentedly through this, unblinking, taking it all in, and then she says the classic line, unflavored for me.
Yeah.
Rod, meanwhile, is staring almost scared into space, and without turning his head, just looks out the corner of his eyes at Ned and Maude, saying nothing.
It seems like, because again, Todd was the one embracing. Maybe Rod's less on board with this than the rest of the family, because he doesn't particularly like these kids, I don't think. Whereas Todd's a bit more. Todd's had a few run-ins with Bart now where they've sort of been friendly. Like Todd went on that little adventure a few weeks ago with the lemon tree and the mini golf competition where they both sort of decided to call it off. Whereas Rod's had really no interaction at all with these kids yet.
It's interesting because Todd was the first one introduced, and Rod, I don't know when Rod actually came on the scene, because I know initially it was just Ned and Todd that we saw in the first episode. I've just started listening to the Simpsons podcast 4 Finger Discount, which is pretty cool, and they go through episode by episode, so I'm just on like like the first few episodes of season 1. And yeah, they've mentioned Todd and they've mentioned Ned, but Rod and Maude are not on the scene at that.
Yeah, I think the first time they show up is the golf game. Like, I think Rod shows up at the same time as Maude. The two things from this scene that I didn't include because they were like a minute before and then there was just sort of general chat is that Lisa says something about everything having a weird Pat Boone-ish quality to the house, the Flanders. I don't really understand that reference.
Well, Pat Boone was like a cardigan singer, was a middle American
Like Donny
1950s. No, before that, more like a grandfathery. We had a British version called Val Doonican, and basically, you know, he's a sweaters and pipe and slippers, it's a TV show kind of singer. Huge in the 50s.
I see. And the other thing was Maggie. The scene opens with like Ned playing like peekaboo with Maggie, and Maggie really like giggling and laughing, and Lisa and Bart note that she's never laughed like that, or like Bart's never heard a laugh like that. And Lisa says, "When was the last time you saw Homer spend any time with her?" So there is sort of Maggie is sort of forgotten about by Homer quite a lot. He almost sat on her once.
Ice milk is a frozen dessert with less than 10% milk fat, but the same sweetener content as ice cream. Ice milk is sometimes priced lower than ice cream. A 1994 change in the United States Food and Drug Administration rules allowed ice milk to be labeled as low-fat ice cream. What year is this episode?
I think it's about 96.
So I always just assumed that ice milk was a made-up thing, but no, apparently it is just a very low-fat ice cream, and these days they would just call it low-fat ice cream.
I thought it was just what Frogurt became, which is also a Simpsons word, actually. But the word Frogurt itself, I believe, came from The Simpsons.
Really?
And then they call the guy on Lost Neil Frogurt because he makes frozen yogurt, and that was a direct Simpsons reference. So there's our second Lost.
This week, I'm going to bring up Harmon again. So Dan Harmon referenced Poochie, didn't he, in that thing? Did you see it where from Harmontown, where he talks about pretending to work for CBS, and he says, you know, and now I can go home at 3:30 because I suggested they put a dog in it, and I think that's a direct reference to Poochie. Anyway, I noticed, being a bit nitpicky here, that when they cut back to Bart and Lisa, it started off and they seem to have sandwiches on their plate, even though they, you know, I don't know, is this breakfast or what? I don't know. But anyway, then it cuts away and they've all got bowls, and then it cuts back to plates again. So come on. If we're going to put this amount of effort into analysing Maude Flanders, the least you could do is get the tableware correct.
Maybe I didn't assume it was breakfast just because they were having non-fat ice milk. I assumed it was like a tea time thing.
I guess so.
Dinner, but
they had sandwiches, and then the sandwiches turned into bowls, and then back into sandwiches.
Mystery dinner. Jesus.
Mystery dinner. Clip 4. We're in the Flanders. One more thing. Go ahead. One more thing.
She's keeping her ice cream habit quiet, but she's obviously she's very much up for eating some. Although this time she's pretending that she likes unflavoured ice milk when she would obviously prefer to gorge a bowl of chocolate ice cream to herself.
Triple choc, death by choc, by the gallon.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Everyone's got their dark secrets, but just imagine if that had come out there. Hey, Maude, you ain't as clean cut. And then you say, yes, but I don't dress my children in potato sacks and a plastic bag for shoes. Good point.
Yeah.
Flanders' bedroom. There is a cot, crib if you're an American, a gentle pink. Maggie is lying inside, watching and listening to Ned and Maude, and this is it. This is the moment we've been waiting for. There can be no question anymore. We thought for a long time that Maude had a real problem with singing in her voice, but now we hear it loud and proud. Get ready, son of Sonny Bono, because we're going to hit you with some goodies. They say your folks can't pay the rent, so we're watching you by act of government. Singing to the tune of I Got You, Babe. She touches Maggie's nose with a sweet, loving smile, and then Ned sings, well, I don't know if the allegations are true, but you got us, and baby, we got you. Maude looks sideways and lovingly at Ned. Maggie is dancing gently and then falls asleep. In the next room, Bart and Lisa look on with big eyes. They're confused. They're scared. An interesting conundrum at the heart of the USA.
This is the big one. This is the one where she actually... Again, this is the only time I can think of that you actually distinctively 100% hear a voice. Because many others... Like, she sings again in this episode later on, but I listened and I still can't pick her out of the four voices. Like, it still, to me, just sounds like Ned and Rod and Todd. Yeah, I can't think of another time where she's been this sort of... But again, she's on her own. Well, she's with Ned and a baby in her own house. Maybe she's feeling comfortable, and it is a very maternal thing to do. It's not like she's gone to karaoke. But she had these lyrics ready.
So you don't think she improvised them?
Possibly, but it's unlikely. They don't seem very creative in that sense. Ned and Maude, they don't seem like they would. It's a strange one in universe for them to have come up with sort of slandering lyric for a baby.
Well, basically, they're just on the right side of mean. They're fact based, and Ned straight out says, I don't know if the allegations are true, but he does say it with a bit of a wink. But you can imagine the two of them after that sandwiches and ice milk evening meal, sitting down, just the two of them, while the children played with figures from the Bible. Ned and Maude would sit there with a pad and just, how about this? Let's try and write this one together. Gave it maybe an hour and came out with those lyrics.
Yeah, strange one. Maybe they're trying to, work on, like they're trying to plant the idea in Maggie's head while she's young that, that Homer and Marge are neglectful. They seem to put a lot more effort into raising Maggie than they do Bart and Lisa. Also, it's they've just put Bart and Lisa to bed, and Bart or Lisa notes that it's like 7 p.m. and the sun, like there's kids still playing in the street and the sun's out. There's a bit of insight into the parenting rules.
Yeah, and you got to say they're probably doing that from strictness and belief that a child needs a good 14 hours sleep. Because I do notice that in the next clip we'll come to, they talk about it being Saturday night and it's like 5:30 in the evening or something like that. Yeah. So here's what I got from that. This is the point where if you're watching, you start to think maybe Ned and Maude are kind of stepping over the line a little bit here. They're not quite the villains yet, but I wonder if there's a inherent suspicion of their religious nature, because although the Simpsons do touch on religion a lot, they seem to be they don't favor heavy religion. They kind of like that kind of faith and that belief, but not people who ram it down your throat. Yeah,
and Ned and Maude have always been on both sides of that fence, in that sometimes they will chase Homer down in a car to convert him, but then sometimes, they will just be kind of part of the society. They aren't, always trying to convert people. They might talk about God a lot, but they aren't always trying to push it or convert other people like Krusty or Apu.
Yeah, I think there's a weird, that evangelical side only comes out from time to time. It's weirdly inconsistent, but it wouldn't make for a very good character if that was their main defining trait. Or it might make for a ridiculous character, but it would be hard to continue writing that character if that was their main trait.
Yeah, however, Maude doesn't really have a defining trait that I can think of from their point of view other than being attractive.
Relatively attractive.
That's the sort of running gag for them with Maude. Not that she's particularly religious. But also, at this point, they aren't just looking after the kids until Homer and Marge are better. They are trying to actively change the kids' points of view and like mentality or like structure. They aren't just sort of stepping in to help anymore. They're trying to raise these kids.
And that's the line, isn't it? I think that's the line where we see it change. So we go to clip 5. Ned sitting with all 5 kids around him, and now Maggie's on his lap like his little sweet baby. And Maude is sitting to the side. Ned says, well, children, it's Saturday night. Now, what say we let our hair down and play bombardment? At which Bart and Lisa cheer, yeah, of Bible questions. To which Todd and Rod cheer, yeah. And like I said, the clock says like 5:40 in the evening or whatever. And they seem to have a picture of some spoons on the wall, which is a bit weird. And Ned says, which version should it be? And then he goes to this shelf full of Bibles. Todd goes for the vanilla of Bibles. He says the St. James, and I thought that was weird because I'm no Bible scholar, but I know the King James version is the main version of the Bible. And I had a look and I couldn't find a St. James. So I thought that was weird. Is that a mistake right there that Ned misses? And Maude misses, they all just miss. But anyway, maybe I'm wrong. Please tell me.
Maybe they were too excited.
Maybe. Please tell me if there is a St. James Bible. But anyway, so he goes for the King James Bible, possibly. However, Rod goes for the Vulgate of St. Jerome, which, as you know, as a Catholic, was the standard Catholic text until 1979 in Latin. So we go for questions from the Vulgate. And what happens?
Things don't go very well for them. They don't get a lot of questions right. What is bombardment a popular? Because I don't really know what bombardment is.
I couldn't find anything about it. I'm just assuming that it just means being asked lots of questions. Again, listeners, tell us if there's a game out there, Bombardment, that we're missing, but I have not come across it.
No, it seemed quite trivial pursuity. But Bart's being quite un-Bartish in this episode. Like, earlier on, it surprised me that he didn't just run back to the Simpsons from the Flanders. Like, he's sort of following the rules for some reason. And maybe it's that fear of, he doesn't know, he can not follow the rules because he knows what Homer and Marge are going to do, but he doesn't know what Ned and Maude are going to do, so he's sticking to things.
It's a weird one, and maybe Bart just doesn't want to get his parents in more trouble. Here's one on the shelf. There's a couple of funny gags that I did look into. So he has one called the Gnostic Bible, called Today's Family Gnostic Bible, and Gnostics generally they're kind of like the teachings of like personal religious experience, and there's a lot of these kind of Gnostic Bibles that are not included in the classic text of the Bible. So it's kind of surprising that Flanders would have this kind of like a Bible that might be considered heretical, and I wonder if Maude might have had her hand in buying some of these Bibles, and she kind of decided that she was going to buy something that pushed the boat out a little bit, or maybe it was just a gift from a wacky friend. What do you think?
I like to think that they just sort of like to have a broad collection of, in a similar way to, I would buy something if it was related to Maude, kind of indirectly. It'd be like if I had all the DVDs of the TV show Maude on my shelf.
But also if you found it offensive, if it was kind of like an X-rated movie of Maude and you had it on your shelf.
Yeah, it could be a reminder for them. Maybe they place little reminders around to keep them from slipping.
Yes.
Like, this is what would, or again, maybe they're just preparing for all situations. Maybe somebody comes in and they can use that Bible and then the Bible to slowly convert them.
Know your enemy. So Maggie got 1 star. Todd's face is covered with stars because he got so many questions right and he's spitting stars out. Rod's got a bunch too. Maude, she's got a couple, but she's thinking of the kids, right? She obviously, in my mind, she knows all of these, but she's not going to put herself out there. She's going to let the kids get them and just occasionally go, of course I know who the Serpent of Rehoboam is.
Yeah, I think so. I think she's being sort of the parent here. I initially thought maybe that she was just a bit of a fraud. I remember mentioning it quite a while ago.
Yes.
This clip where she only has 2 stars on her face. But yeah, it seems to make a lot more sense that she would just be doing it, to give let the kids sort of have their fun.
Exactly.
But also, I was just thinking, does this mean that the Flanders can speak Latin, do you think?
Oh, I think they probably know enough to pick through the Bible, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ned speaks some Latin or even can read some Hebrew, get back to the real source. Maybe I'm selling Maude short. She's never shown herself to be much of a scholar, but maybe she's the one that can read the old texts in their original language.
Possibly. It's never confirmed or denied that I know of. As far as we know, she only speaks English, but it's also not confirmed that she only speaks English.
Very interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if some French came out of her mouth one day and were like, "Ooh la la, you can speak other languages, Maude, you old fox, you old devil." That'd be the kind of thing that would pop on the Bongo Cast, wouldn't it? One day she just suddenly, she can just speak French. Like that episode where Bart suddenly can just speak French because he's been listening to it for like 3 months, which is obviously, as anyone who's like to try to learn a language knows, that's exactly how it happens.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that theory. I like that she potentially speaks Latin. We'll look for sort of clues in the future.
She's a mysterious lady, and one would not be too surprised if any number of things were unveiled in that area. So anyway, Maude is looking now a little bit concerned because even Maggie got 1. I'm not sure how that happened, but she's sitting with her legs crossed underneath her in somewhat an uncomfortable position. The Japanese would refer to this as seiza, sitting with your legs entirely underneath you. Not good for the knees if you're an old timer like me. And she's sitting, shaking her head at an unstarred Bart and Lisa. And Ned says, "Okay," and starts to ask a question. And Rod leaps up and he says, "No, we've got to let Bart and Lisa get one." Maude's smiling. She looks a little bit embarrassed. She's like, "Come on, children, you might at least get one of them." And Ned says, "Come on, this one's easy." And he whispers, "Come on, you can do this," to Bart and Lisa. He doesn't actually say that, but I imagine he would. And He
I didn't
shouts,
think he-
Book of Revelations, fire-breathing lion's head, tail made of snakes. And Maude's looking on, and with expectantly, Bart replies with the answer of Jesus. Ned is exasperated, raises his hands trembling. Maude looks up at Ned, not knowing what to do. Ned's got his hands to his head. What is he thinking? And what is Maude thinking at this time?
I think this is one of my favourite Ned lines in the way that he half says Jesus and then says it again. Like he can't believe it.
Because it's clearly Satan, I believe, that is the beast with all these animal parts. And Bart goes for...
I just sort of assumed it would be a random Bible character. I didn't think it would be Satan. I thought it would just be something.
If we're looking at the book of Revelation, and doesn't he say the book of Revelations? And if you know anything about Half Man, Half Biscuit, the great Scouse band, they make it very clear that the book is called the Book of Revelation, not the Book of Revelations. St. John the Divine.
Another blunder.
Is it possible that these guys made two biblical blunders that the average layman could pick up on? I hope not.
Maybe they were trying to test Bart and Lisa, that old chestnut. But no, I think Maude's thinking that, she's smiling and giving them sort of an encouraging look of, like, you got this, kids, I believe in you. But she's there's some nerves to it as well. She doesn't really believe that, but she's trying to put on like an encouraging face because that's what she would do for Rod and Todd. And I think she's if she's as judgmental as we're thinking, I think this is one of the times in her head she'll be thinking some bad things about Homer and Marge.
Well, you know what, Nathan? It gets worse. But before it gets worse, we get some classic lines from Ned Flanders, who shouts, "Don't you kids know anything? The serpent of Rehoboam, the well of Zohasadar, the bridal feast of Beth Chadruzabeb." Absolutely fantastic.
Good specific. That's what makes me think that it isn't Satan, that it'll just be something random. But again, it is. I think Maude would be more disappointed in Lisa because Lisa is sort of intelligent and she's still not getting anything right.
Yes. They're not real though, right? So Rehoboam apparently is real, but I don't know if anything else in there is real. I think they're made up.
Oh, I thought they were all real.
I thought at first they'd be real, but they're so wacky. I thought I'm going to have a look and see, and it seems like they might not be. But let's feedback on that in a week. Too late next week. So Maude chimes in and says, "Well, that's the kind of thing you should start." It goes without saying that Bart and Lisa do not know any of those things. Maude chimes in, "Well, that's the kind of thing you should start learning at baptism." And now she has genuine concern on her face, and she's imploring them with both hands. This is a large display of emotion for Maude Flanders. Lisa, twirling her hair, says, "Actually, you see, we were never baptized." Maude gasps, totally shocked, eyes wide open. Ned drops the Bible and faints onto the couch. Maude's hands go to her face. "Oh, Neddy, Neddy!" Shock, horror. She leaps up and grabs some smelling salts from the drawer. Handy. Waves them under Ned's nose, anticipating, waiting. Ned rouses, says, "No, that ain't gonna do," and faints again. Maude gasps. These are hard times in the Flanders house. Paying a heavy price.
It's very emotionally charged for Maude, considering that a couple of weeks ago she let him walk out to his death.
Exactly. Yeah.
She's sort of all over the place again, but I think in our timeline of things that are following on, I think she's sort of still in shock over the Mr. Burns stuff, so she's a bit more emotionally charged than usual. And she's maybe this is some sort of like displaced shock. Things are just sort of sinking in, and then when Ned faints, she just jumps into action mode to rescue him, which is good, really. In the sort of, we keep saying that maybe she hates Ned sort of deep down, but this sort of proves that her gut reaction is to help him and save him. So that's a good sign.
She's in there. She wants to save him. The thing is that it's all well and good for them to risk their physical selves, but they're talking about the souls of these children. These children's eternal souls are damned if they don't do something about it. And again, this is the line maybe where they go over and do some things that maybe are questionable. However, these kids are in their care, and we're talking about saving their eternal gosh darn souls here.
Well, I think baptism is sort of a deal breaker for the Flanders. We've already talked a bit more on potential miracle birth and how important I imagine baptism was to her, and the finding of God for that family. So I think baptism is obviously really important to Ned because he's all super Jesus-y. But I think we're seeing this reaction because baptism is also important to Maude. Whereas normally she's quite, laid back about everything that's going on around her. In this, like, she's genuinely shocked at what's going on.
It's hard to believe that in this day and age that those children, their souls are not cared for should anything happen. So they got to act quick. But before that, we cut to Ned shaking in a blanket, drinking some Maude-made hot chocolate. Who knows? He's drinking something. Maude goes for the extra care. I've never seen her do this before. She has one hand on the shoulder and a hand on his thigh. The double touch. Phew. The Simpsons kids are looking on, and Ned says, "Jeepers H crackers, I better call the Reverend." He jumps up, runs off, just hands the mug to Maude. Maude just takes it and reacts. She knows that this is average. This is par for the course. She's probably surprised that he didn't call Reverend Lovejoy several times already. Maybe he did.
Well, he seems to be in shock for the most part. So I think this is his coming round is him. His coming to his senses is him phoning the Reverend, and he has the number on on old telephones. You'd have like 4 speed dial numbers with like handwritten cards. It's like fire department, police, Reverend Lovejoy. So
you say old telephones, Nathan, but for me, those telephones came in when I was your age. 28 years old.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't really have a lot more to say about this last clip. This is typical Maude in that she's more reacting than doing anything. She's very passive again. She's made some cocoa. She's just sort of comforting Ned. She isn't going to take charge and be like, right, this is what we need to do. She's just going to stand by Ned.
Exactly. She knows what's at stake, but she knows Neddy will take care of it, especially after he called God down just a few weeks ago to save Todd. I mean, what's he going to do? God's probably going to come down and do the baptism himself, knowing these guys. Anyway, that's it for this first part. We're going to come back to this episode because there's much, much more. Lots of Maudie meat in there. Anything more to add about the content of this episode before we move on?
Yes, I forgot one thing from the singing clip, the I Got You Babe clip. There's a picture in the background behind Maude's head of a woman who sort of half looks like Maude.
Yes.
But and her eyes are blue.
Interesting.
Completely blue. And I don't know if it's supposed to be because it's like dark in the room or whatever, but none of the characters' eyes are blue, so it's a strange one. I want to know who that lady is.
I'd like to know too. Is it a young what's her mum's name?
Marilyn?
Is it a young Marilyn? Is it a Laurie? Is it some unknown cousin? Is it Ginger? Don't think so. This looks like a modern picture. I just thought it was Maude. I didn't look that closely, but good find there on the blue eyes. Let's see if we can do some Maude investigation. So before we move on, we got a bit of time for spectral speculations. Hopefully we can have a page from the diary. Who knows? Maybe we'll even find out about them writing that song. Who knows? It's a mystery. I have a question for you about the spectral speculations. Maude has 2 twin brothers that we've only mentioned in passing, Garrett and Conrad, aka Bona. Can you tell me a little bit about Conrad and Bona?
Yeah, we haven't really looked into them.
Garrett and Bona. Conrad is Bona.
I think they're older.
According to last week's Treehouse of Horror, they were young children and went to the party with their mother. So, of course.
So they are younger than Maude.
We have established already they are younger.
They are 4 years younger. And I think Maude's relatively indifferent to them. I don't think she ever really... Because they were twins and they sort of just kept to each other. So I'd say Maude had a stronger relationship with Laurie. And is there another one?
No, I believe there's only those 4. There's Laurie, Maude, and then Garrett and Bona.
Yeah, I believe that Maude and Laurie were closer than Maude or the twins, but maybe they'll pop up time to time.
Can you give us a fun fact about each of the twins? Garrett Goodman and Conrad Bona Goodman.
Garrett has been married 4 times, and Conrad is allergic to shrimp.
Sounds good. I'll put that in the bag, and we'll get to that later. So, do we have time for a page of Magdalen's diary?
Yeah.
Interested to see what transpires today. Take it away.
Dear diary, we are looking after the Simpson children for now, for the foreseeable future until Homer and Marge sort of age. They're gonna like learn stuff, how to be better parents like me and Ned, but for the time being we are gonna do our best with these kids and try and put them on the right path. I think the baby one is probably our best bet. so we are working on a song for her to try and gently teach her that her parents are neglectful monsters who are waiting to succumb to the pits of hell one day for their actions. So me and Ned were writing a song about, you know, how much we love Maggie and how much her parents are awful. And there was a knock on the door, and it was the celebrity Sonny Bono was at the house. And I answered the door and I said, "Oh, Neddy, it's Sonny from Sonny and Cher." And Ned came over and said, "Hi, idly doodly," or something. And he just took the notepad out of my hands and just ripped it up in front of us and started stamping on it and spitting on it. And then he just walked off with his middle finger up to us, which made me gasp. And then he left. I never saw him again for the rest of the day. At least we're doing the song anyway. We'll keep you posted on the. We're gonna play Bombardment tomorrow night, and I'm hoping that the Simpsons kid prove us wrong, and they do have a great knowledge of the Bible, but it's not looking good. So we'll see. As long as they've been baptized, everything's fine. Good night, Maude.
Wow, a long, meandering, filth-filled, judgmental diary entry. My goodness. Are we sure that's written in Maude's handwriting and not some kind of imposter?
No, it was her.
And who would have known Sonny Bono, father of the son of Sonny Bono, turning up and acting in the same way that his son does about copyright theft? But thankfully that didn't stop the Flanders. They may fear God, but they do not fear the copyright lawyers, the Bonos. Well, that was fantastic. And so it's time for the end of days song, the post-mortem. Who would like to start, you or me?
You.
Local autocrat shot.
Mr. Burns in a coma.
Sobbing Marge with her kids in the welfare van.
Potato sack.
The family is waiting, gonna put some flowers round your neck.
County dentures.
Weirdly cultish, dressed in potato sack, teeth falling out, but it's just a baby tooth.
Vengeful God.
Charity is judgment. It was loose. It was loose.
Wintergreen. Wintergreen. Green. Green. Green.
No maple syrup, only honey.
Pat Boone.
Non-fat ice milk, low-fat ice cream, triple death by chocolate ice cream.
Disengaged rod.
Oh, Bible questions. Oh, St. James Bible.
The Vulgate of St. Jerome.
The serpent of Rehoboam. The well of Zohasadar.
Baptism.
The bridal feast of Beth Chadruhazreb.
The bridal feast of Chadruhazreb.
Oh, that's the kind of thing that you learn in the baptism.
Blue-eyed lady.
Blue-eyed lady.
Maggie.
Magaggie. Blue-eyed Magaggie.
The end.
The end. Oh, we did it. That's the first episode of season 3, also the 22nd episode, or the 20th episode if you don't count the specials. The 19th if you don't count the Bongo Cast, but you should because that's a real one. But whichever way you cut it, we did it.
We're making solid progress. There's a lot of good Maude stuff coming up in season 3. It's very hefty, except for one episode where we see very little of her, but she's around.
I want to see a lot of Maude, but not too much, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. Oh, ooga, ooga. The end. Bye.
Bye.